discussed briefly about this idea of PDC during the last COP29 in Baku last year. And just in this week now, there is the intersessional COP from the preparation of the COP30 in Belém. And maybe you can share with us your experience in the UNFCCC area, no? Because you have a long experience in this negotiation process.
Yes, yes, yes. Daniel, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's my pleasure joining you and share some of my experiences. As we are heading towards COP30 in Brazil, Belém, as you mentioned, that means it is already 30 years, 3 decades has passed since we started the exercise of climate change at the UN. 3 decades is not very short. It's quite a long process. And I was involved in this process from 1991. And I was in Rio de Janeiro in 1992 as a Korean diplomat. And I was one of the people who were joining to sign the UNFCCC signing ceremony. So it was in 1992, already 33 years passed. And when I look back, the 33 years we spent, my recollection is that we are not making much progress, unfortunately. I have to confess that we are losing the battle. We are losing the war, and we are losing the battle, even though some of the battles might be won in some of the countries in Europe, the rich country, but much of the war itself is we are losing it. And as you can see, the climate is getting hotter and warmer. So the reason I came up with the idea of PDC, personally determined contribution, vis-a-vis the idea of NDC, nationally determined contribution, which is a foundation, basic foundation of a Paris Climate Agreement. But this Paris Climate Agreement, many people applauded it as if it is a big achievement in 2015, 10 years ago. I was there, and everybody really applauded it as if it's a big achievement. But unfortunately, from my perspective, from the long history of 3 decades of UNFCCC, in fact, the Paris Climate Agreement is not at all we were aiming in 1992 or 1995 at COP1. We started the COP1 in 1995 in Berlin. I was there. During the course of 1995 COP1 until 2015, about 20 years later, our goal was to agree on legally binding agreement. Legally binding agreement. That was the goal of the UN climate processes. But Paris Climate Agreement, which was agreed in 2015, 10 years ago, means we gave up legally binding regime. And Paris Climate Agreement basically meaning just a voluntary pledge and review. Just a voluntary pledge and review.
Yep.
No legally bindingness at all. So if you look at the Paris Climate Agreement, we don't have a compliance clause. There is no paragraph or clause about compliance. It is not compliance. It is just encouragement or facilitation, not compliant. So, okay,
Yep.
Okay, everybody agreed on at the time for voluntary pledge and review. But what happened to the voluntary pledge and review, which was done in 2018, 3 years after the Paris Climate Agreement, all government came up with the NDC, voluntary pledge and review, which so-called NDC. But in 2023 in Dubai, 2 years ago, we had a global stocktake. What was the conclusion? The conclusion was that we are failing, falling behind our NDC pledge. That was the conclusion. Falling behind mean what? It's a diplomatic expression, but frankly speaking, more a direct expression is we are failing. We are failing to meet our NDC commitment. In other words, NDC remains as a political statement, not target or legal obligation. So now we are heading towards 2030, which is a target year for our NDC. Now this year we are going to talk about the target NDC for 2035. Okay, talking about 2035 with much stricter and the high ambition is good exercise, good exercise. But is there any guarantee that these ambitions will be matched with action? Actually, there's no guarantee whatsoever. We simply have to rely on goodwill of the governments. Goodwill of the government. This is why I felt after the 3 decades of experience of this kind of exercise, my conclusion is that we cannot just rely on NDC, which is a top-down approach, top-down. Government setting the target and imposing on the business. So the pressure is mainly on the business. Business means the production side, production side. And the government is imposing the burden on the production and the business and industry side. But as I said, my conclusion is that this approach, top-down approach, doesn't work. It is not working.
Yep.
That's why I came up with a bottom-up approach,
Let me
which is
interrupt
the PDC.
1 second,
Yeah,
because you put a lot of
yeah.
input on the table is very, very interesting, and try to put one per time before to go to the PDC.
Mhm.
Because exactly when you have the conversation last week at the end of a side event where we were together, and we have a conversation, no? You say, yes, everything we are just discussing today is absolutely correct, but it's the same kind of discussion was, is going since the beginning. No? So it's a 30 year we are having the same kind of discussion. And then you put on the table two different topics. One is that there is not enough ambitious in NDC, because if we are not, the stock taking is saying that our projection for the end of the century is 2.6 instead of 2 or 1.5. No? So the point of ambitious, and is what is discussed under discussion now in Bonn and will be discussed at the COP30 for Belém. So the point of ambitious. And then you put another important point. There is no compliance mechanism. There is no mechanism to control if somebody will be able to respect their commitment. So the ambitious is one point, and the respect of this commitment is another point. And then I go to the third point. The third point is that this kind of commitment is at the national level. The state is the government commitment. And then what a lot of government is doing is to transfer the pressure on the market, as you mentioned, maybe even in the regulatory system, because even creating some mechanism to create some rules in order to increase efficiency and to promote the production of renewable energy and so on. But it's in any case a top-down. Top-down means that if we stay sleeping in our beds and doing nothing, there will be no solution if only the government asks to do something. So there is a kind of need to reverse the approach. And this is the reason because I found very, very interesting your proposal of PDC. Raekwon, I like to ask you if you can explain better what the PDC is.
PDC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as I told you, now we need to encourage bottom-up approach, because what is missing in the 3 decades of exercise of UNCOP is that we never talked about the role of the consumers and the issue of the consumption. Consumption. We only talked about production. The cross-border carbon border adjustment measure, which is the EU is pushing for, CBAM, is actually putting the pressure on the producer and the exporter. And where is the consumers and the consumption issue? So, number one, we have to also look at the bottom-up approach which I call PDC, personally determined contribution. But I have a more concrete proposal to make this PDC. PDC, as you see, is just a concept, just a concept. But is there any way we can make it as a concrete action, not just an ambiguous concept? Yes, I do have it. My idea is that price differentiation between carbon energy and carbon-free energy. So we have to separate the price. The price has to be differentiated. Not only energy price, but product price. Product means product made with fossil fuel and the product made with renewable energy. Then the price has to be different. If we have a same Apple handphone, mobile phone, but if this mobile phone made from fossil fuel, the other same Apple mobile phone, cell phone, but made with renewable energy, then these two phones should have a different price. But many people might think that we should put cheaper price for renewable energy. No, no, no. My idea is that no, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that renewable energy, except in some of the few countries in Europe or in some state in the United States, renewable energy in most of the countries is more expensive, more expensive. Not only because of solar panel. Yes, solar panel can be cheaper. And if we just calculate solar panel production cost, somebody argue that, oh, renewable solar energy is cheaper. But that's not true. That does not include energy storage price, the cost, and the grid connection cost. These are the extra costs that has to be also added on to the solar energy production cost. So if we add up storage cost and the transmission cost, renewable energy is definitely more expensive in most of the country. Then what should we do? We have to put higher price for renewable energy product and the renewable energy. And we have to present these two different price options to the consumers. And then consumers has to choose green energy and the green energy product. If they are really concerned, care about climate disaster or their future, then they should share the burden by paying the extra cost for renewable energy and the renewable energy product. This is the essence of the issue, because why climate we are failing to meet this challenge is because it needs extra investment, extra cost. Then the question is, who will share this extra burden, cost? Then so far, we have not discussed, only we expect, oh, business can take up the cost or the government should provide a subsidy. That's the only way we are talking about. But now I'm talking about, no, consumers have to share the extra cost and burden. So, but we cannot impose it to everybody. That's why I'm proposing price differentiation as a voluntary option for the consumers, so that consumers can have a choice. So if the consumers are concerned about climate, they should choose green premium or climate premium price. So that is something I'm proposing now.
I interrupt you because there is already, again, a lot of other important input that you share with us. The first point, the metrics for the calculation of the emission. There is the production matrix and the consumption matrix. The production is what is considered for IPCC, for UNFCCC in the COP. So is in consideration what is the emission that happen within the boundary of a country. But if a country is producing the steel, for example, and they emit for the production of this steel, and the steel is consumed by another country, there is an indirect responsibility from the country using the steel. And if the second country will take the responsibility of the embedded emission in the steel, then we are using the consumption matrix. It is only to clarify what you just expressed. And then
That's
another
right,
point,
that's right.
and then you mentioned the emission is not only the emission that happen at the point of production of energy. If it's a solar panel, it is not zero. There is some emission for the production of the solar panel. There is emission for the production of the grid, for the connection of the grid, for the storage. And this is going direction of the LCA, life cycle assessment or carbon footprint of product, because each kilowatt hour has responsibility in the whole value chain. And then your point, if I can summarize, is that there is some level of emission that is higher or what normally is understood by the people, but there is also a point of responsibility, because when you say that a company or a person, more than a company, a person want to take responsibility of their own action, then this person could be available to spend an additional price, a premium price. And this is your point. What we can do with this additional price, with this money?
Oh, yeah. With this extra payment, the extra payment should go for because, for example, maybe I can give you an example. Maybe Coca-Cola or Apple or Starbucks say that, oh, we are going to use renewable energy for our operation, and then they say that we are going to pay green or climate premium price of electricity. So this money will be going for buying renewable energy or investing in renewable energy infrastructure. So there has to be a kind of transparency needed for the kind of trust. So far, as you know, as we all know, there are some kind of carbon offset applications. There are many apps for carbon offset, for tree planting, and when you buy airplane ticket, you can pay premium for carbon offsetting. But this doesn't work very well. Why? Because people don't know where this money is going. So whether the tree is really going to be planted or so, this is an issue. So as you can see, as we are living in a digital age, it is relatively very easy to manage the transparency through an IT platform where this money can go, and we can even track. So I think that the digital platform can play an important role showing the transparency for the consumers.
So if I try all the time to summarize your point to see if I understood correctly and also to facilitate the dialogue later. So in some way, the proposal is to have a potential premium price on the voluntary base for the consumer. In this way, the consumer may take their own responsibility, and this premium price should be collected and managed in a digital way, in a transparent way. And then I come to the following question. But who will decide, who will manage this money? Who will decide how to spend this money?
Yeah. Okay. For country like Korea, we have our electricity is a monopoly, monopoly. So the money will go to the company, Korea Power Energy. They are selling the electricity. So this payment will go to Korea Power. And this Korea Power will manage this money. And because they are buying the renewable energy from the suppliers. So they are paying this money to the suppliers of the renewable energy. At the moment in Korea, maybe many other countries, maybe similar situation that power companies, monopoly, and they are buying the solar energy from the supplier, and they are paying higher price because the actual production cost is a lot higher. So this power company is paying a higher price to buy this green energy, and then they are selling at a lower price to consumers. That's what's happening in Korea. This is why the Korea Power Company running deficit, and the Korea Power Company very reluctant to increase buying the green energy from the suppliers. So in Korea, very funny situation. We have many suppliers willing to supply green energy, but this power company is holding up grid connection. Because as soon as the grid connection happen, they have to pay the higher price for the buying the solar energy. So this Korea Power Company is reluctant. So many of the suppliers are even hold out for 1 year, 2 year. They have to wait until they get the grid connection from the power company. So this is the situation. And this power company, when they get extra payment, they can speed up this kind of a grid connection and buying more electricity.
Maybe this is also in connection with the different national situation, because in Europe the situation is different, and then the green energy is cheaper. There are some country where the amount of energy is mainly based on the renewable energy, when the average price of the energy is really lower. So I
Mhm.
suppose this is also in connection with the national condition. But going back to your point, And because the focus that you mentioned is on the energy producing company. So you have the national company producing energy in Korea, but then when I know when I need to buy a smartphone, for example, I'm not buying the energy, I'm buying the product. So how we can transfer this kind of mechanism to the product?
Ah, for example, as I told you, the case of maybe Coca-Cola or Starbucks, these are the consumer goods, companies. So now is a very interesting case can be found in Uzbekistan, and there is a Pepsi Cola and the Coca-Cola is competing a lot, almost half and half, their share of market. And then Coca-Cola said that they are willing to pay even double the price of electricity if it is supplied, because it's also monopoly in Uzbekistan. So this power company supplies solar energy at twice the price of green premium and selling at a higher price. But Coca-Cola isn't ready to buy paying twice the price. Why? Because Coca-Cola can say that our Coke is carbon-free Coke. So carbon-free branding can have a strong marketing power because there are in our market there are quite a substantial segment of the consumer are willing to pay extra money for carbon-free product. This market is changing. Consumers are changing. Not everybody, but some of the people in the consumer market, they are willing to buy and to pay extra money for carbon product. So it can be translated into the product dimension. I'd like to introduce to you, I'm actually promoting a project, carbon-free cotton, textile cotton. Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan producing a lot of cotton, but I'm now introducing them an idea to grow cotton, cultivating it on their smart farm, operating, supplied by the solar energy. So this smart farm is operating on green energy and without carbon emission. So that we can brand same cotton, but this cotton can be branded as a carbon-free cotton. Carbon-free cotton. And very interestingly, the fashion design shops in Italy and France. One of my friends is supplying and working with the fashion brands in Italy, Milano. And these fashion houses, they are willing to pay whatever the price. Even the cotton is more expensive. Carbon-free cotton can be more expensive. But they say they're willing to buy. Why? Because they say that we are using carbon-free cotton. That can have a very strong marketing power. This is their idea. This is why I'm confident that we can even apply the idea of PDC and the price differentiation in the market, in the product side.
It's very interesting because, in my view, you are putting some additional consideration on the table because what is behind the key topics is to have the premium price, to have to pay something in addition in order to provide on our own responsibility money that can be invested in some other direction. Because now is under what will be discussed. We discussed in the COP30 in Belém is the extension of the fund for mitigation adaptation from 300 billion to 1.3 trillion. So there is a need of
Yeah,
a huge amount of money for
yeah,
direction. But your point initially was mentioning the responsibility of the single person because I can decide to pay an extra price, a premium price, when I buy electrical energy. Then there is one intermediate subject. It's Coca-Cola in your example. That is a company that the company decide to pay the extra price. And as a consumer, I can decide to buy Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi-Cola in your example, because the Coca-Cola will pay the extra price. So in this case, there is no more the decision of the consumer directly to select the energy, but to select any kind of product where there is this kind of action behind. And this is very,
that's
very.
right.
But do you
That's
believe
right.
that in Korea, for example, that several people, citizens, are interested, able to pay extra money?
Yes. In Korea, we have a survey about 3 years ago, probably 3 years ago, we had a survey. 48% of the Koreans say that they are willing to pay higher price for climate or renewable energy product. They are looking for option made from renewable energy. There are quite a considerable number of people and consumers are willing to, that they are looking for. You know, what they are frustrated, the young, especially young generation, what they are frustrated. I know that in Europe there are some activists spraying the, what is it, tomato ketchups and the paintings and all the, I know those activists. Why they are so angry? Because there's no option for them to take the action. But if we give them two prices, and instead of spraying the ketchup, why don't you pay for green product? And you're buying the green energy product. That is the way, instead of, just an expression of the anger and destroying the painting. That is, doesn't make any sense. But to me, we should give them the option for the consumer because there are considerable number of expectations from the consumers looking for this kind of products.
Yep. To be precise, we need to underline that these activists is not destroying the picture because they only put
I know. Okay.
only to be
Maybe I might wrong. I
no,
was
no,
wrong.
it's only to be precise because it's important even
Yeah,
to
yeah,
in
yeah.
the right direction. But it's interesting because you are putting two different dimensions of this kind of
Mm.
tool. One is the change of mind, the change of culture, because it's a way to engage people in this process. And the other one is a kind of structured, formalized tool or mechanism in order to allow the flow of finance in direction of positive action. So do you agree that there are two different components of this tool? The
Mm.
cultural.
Um, for me, PDC is just a concept, and it doesn't have to be recognized by the UNFCCC. I don't think it is a real critical issue. The issue is it is a concept, and we have to put on the agenda of the COP30 the agenda of the role of the consumer and the role of the consumption. We have never discussed in the COP history, 30 years of COP history, we never discussed the issue of consumption. We never discussed the issue of the role of the consumers. We have been only talking about production and the exporters, especially developing the carbon leakage. I didn't have a chance to explain the carbon leakage. Since we are putting up pressure on the producers, that is pushing the industry from Europe to China and Korea. So if we put the pressure on the consumer, it is just making carbon leakage, no global reduction. Global reduction can only come from reduction or sustainability or the efficiency of carbon consumption. So we have to talk about the consumption, but we never talked about it. This is why our consumption pattern, especially in rich country, especially typically in the United States, getting worse and worse, and nobody talking about it. The size of the private car in the United States is getting bigger and bigger, Cybertruck and all these kind of crazy things, and nobody talks about it. Nobody even link it with the climate. And there are kind of space tourism. The billionaires are using billions of dollars for space tourism, and nobody talks about the emission and the consumption issue. So we have to put this issue on the table, and we have to put two sides together, not only production, but also consumption at the same time, because we have been missing this side for too long.
Yeah, it's also interesting because you mentioned that space tourism and the SUV and the big cars, etc. It's also interesting that we had organized here on the London Climate Action Week. The first event was in connection with a group of NGOs, including one is called Bad Advertising, that is promoting to forbid, to not allow the advertisement in the city of the high emitting products, for example, the air flight or the SUV. So they want to have the ban of this kind of advertisement in the city. So this is in connection with your point, because I believe there is the movement in this direction. And you're right, was never before in the formal agenda of NEPCCC the discussion of consumption, even if there was a lot of input from NGO in the past, try to have the double metrics to mirror the metrics of production together with the metric for consumption. even if they didn't succeed, in some way the pushing in this direction was already existing in the past. But you mentioned the COP30. So do you have any expectation that this kind of conversation could have more space at the COP30?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. Nobody is raising this issue. And as you talked about trillion or billion or $1 trillion, they are talking about. We have been talking about billion and trillion during last 30 years. But as you see, under the current situation of a global economy, as European economy down, everybody down, we have too many war. And do you think it is? I don't think it is a very pathetic, idea to just putting the numbers and fighting over it. It's not an issue actually. We should have a change of the market system. So my idea of a price differentiation is actually a kind of an idea to renovate the market situation. What I mean, market system. In other words, current free market has only one price, and the cheapest price winning the market. Fossil fuel is the cheapest in many places. So fossil fuel is winning the market. And we are just raising some our discontent about it. But rather than just raising some discontent about it, we should propose an idea to change the market. So the idea is two price. There has to be a two price, not just one cheapest price. Because some consumers are not only looking for cheapest price, some consumers are looking for meaningful consumption and green energy product. So the market is changing, consumers are changing, but unfortunately, not many businesses are realizing this. And so they don't take enough of the opportunity for this. And even for the NGO, my advice for NGO, I know that NGOs have been working so long, for too long, too hard, but not, for me, not much result. We are failing. Why? Because maybe if I were doing the NGO, I would rather propose that instead of protesting to the business, protesting to the government, rather I would say that I'm ready to pay for green energy product with extra payment.
So
That is more powerful. That is more powerful than just shouting and crying about the government inaction or business. So I think rather than shouting and protesting to the business, it's better that please produce green energy product. We will buy. We will buy. We will pay it extra money. That is more strong sign.
even if, to be fair, we have to say that NGO, they are often proposing a lot of very interesting concrete solutions. So there is a very huge movement and very competent movement of people. But this point is for sure crucial, not to be ready and to be available to spend extra money. And maybe we can think to organize a side event at the Korea Pavilion, maybe together dedicated to this topic, because I think deserve to have a further discussion within the COP. The point is that so your explanation seems to be so crystal clear. And we also have other tool already available on the market, because I mentioned carbon footprint of product before. That is exactly the way to have a fair representation of the real emission behind the product. Now consider it from cradle to grave in all full life cycle of the kilowatt hours, of the soft drink, etc. And not only, we also have a program operator. We have Carbon Footprint Italy in Italy. In Korea, we have IPF of the Ministry of KITEC, for example, and the Technological Center for Ministry of Economy. And a lot of other countries do have a specific mechanism to quantify the carbon footprint, to have the picture of the real emission of each product. So the tool is there.
Tool is there. Can I add one more example? Actually, you have the example in Europe. In France, my friend living in France, he is receiving his credit card monthly bill from the bank, French bank. It is showing that not only just money he spent, but it's also showing how much CO2 you have emitted based on your expenditure for energy, fashion, or dining, or housing. So it is already showing the amount of carbon emission by the monthly bill. So these informations are already available.
Yeah, exactly. I will try to summarize the point. So yes, the from the technicality, the way to calculate the impact of carbon footprint is already there. There is a registry program available to show the impact. In your presentation, you said also there is availability of the consumer to pay an extra price. So, which are the most important obstacle for the implementation of the PDC in your view?
Oh, it's first of all, there's no any kind of awareness about this issue. Still, as you can see in the agenda of COP 30 or COP 29 or 30, as you can see, there's nothing about consumption. No country is raising this issue. So actually, nobody is raising this issue. So it is not on the table. This is why this. So first of all, maybe the idea and proposal should come from NGO side. NGOs should strongly raise the voice to put this agenda on the COP or some of the government. I've been talking to some of the government, Russia, China, but they said, oh, it's a good idea, but they didn't take action. So some governments can put this agenda on the action on the table. Some government has to do it as a kind of a contracting party to the agreement. Otherwise, or the NGO, even the NGO, there are many NGOs, but nobody proposed this idea and nobody raised this issue.
Okay, I don't know if there are any question. If somebody want to raise his or her hand or write some question in the chat, you are welcome. John, you can, John, also open your microphone if you prefer to present your question, or if we can read as you prefer.
Hi. Sorry. Yes, just to pick up on that example of banks providing footprint information in your kind of bank statement or similar. So NatWest in the UK has tried this, and I don't know if it's still available. They tried it as a sort of a voluntary thing in their online app, which was interesting. I guess my question is, what's the right level of detail when doing this? Because, as we know, you can use very generic information to provide these estimates. But if I was a brand owner, I might be quite grumpy about people making decisions on that level of very generic information as to whether to buy my product or not buy my product. So how should we balance this need for cheap scale with specific information that is relevant to a particular brand?
Mm-hmm.
If I can respond to have a initial part of the answer, because John Kaiser didn't introduce himself, so he's from Carbon Trust, is a very important organization responsible to guarantee the amount of carbon footprint of the market. And then I fully agree with you, John, that there may be different level of details in the information. So, but for this kind of mechanism, could be even maybe important to have a lower level of accuracy, but to be able to move the market in some direction. So maybe it's not to have a very, very precise number as you do normally in the carbon footprint programs, but to have some more draft raw information that is able to push in one direction. This is my personal view, but Raekwon, what do you think about it?
From my point of view, that depends on how we design the system. From my idea of having two price electricity, and for example, if some company A decided to use 100%, like renewable energy 100, like hourly 100, then they just need a certification from the government or the power company that this company paid full price of renewable energy. So this company product can be certified as a renewable energy product. That's it. So we don't need any detailed counting of the. I don't think that is something that's critical, because it makes if we going for actual emission is a very difficult and complicated exercise, and I don't think we have to go follow that path. Rather, give a very simple mechanism so that the company A say that, oh, we paid full price of renewable energy. For example, in Korea, it is almost twice the price. Renewable energy is almost twice the price of fossil fuel electricity. So if Samsung, for example, Samsung say that we are paying twice the price of electricity, then Samsung can be certified as a 100% renewable energy company, and the product from Samsung can be certified as a 100% renewable energy product. So in this case, consumers do not have to worry too much about the exact calculation of the emission. So my idea is that we have to go for very simplistic choice to provide a very simple choice for the consumer, rather than making it difficult to calculate the details of the tons and kilograms of the carbon.
John, you want to react?
Yeah, no, I think that's interesting. And so the Amazon climate pledge friendly system kind of works a little bit like that, I suppose. So if you go onto the Amazon website, from certain countries, I don't think it's globally available, but they have a scheme of registering particular certification schemes within their pledge friendly approach. And if your product has one of those certifications, then you qualify to be counted as climate friendly, I guess. And it's up to you as a consumer to decide if you think that that particular certification is relevant to what you're trying to do. What I think would be useful, though, is a second level of what's the word? Sort of gatekeeping for this, because it's not easy for a consumer to decide if something is relevant or not. Requires quite a lot of information to understand what a certification really means. So, as an example, I wouldn't want to claim that a beef steak was RE100 certified and that this would be meaningful compared to a mobile phone, for example. The relevance of renewable electricity to beef production is much lower than it is for manufacturing. So my suggestion is that this kind of scheme should have at least some sort of threshold or some sort of assessment of relevance before you make that available for consumers. And therefore, that would then be more useful from my point of view. Who would make that decision? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Raekwon, you want to
No, I have no problem, But my idea is that we have to offer very simple choice to the consumers. We don't have to make them headache for calculating the kilograms. I think that's a stupid exercise. So we should better give them, this is green or carbon-free product or carbon product. So the consumers can pay for or choose. So and they pay for the price. So that even for that, even the whether it is Coca-Cola, whether it is Apple or Samsung, if the consumers are willing to pay and buy carbon-free product by paying higher price, for example, like a luxury fashion houses in Italy and France, if they say that, oh, my product is made of a carbon-free cotton, and they're putting extra money for it, and the consumer is still buying for it, and if the fashion houses believe that this is helping their branding and marketing power, then they will do it, and they will go for it. So we don't have to complicate the consumers with details, the data for the carbon amount, but rather giving them a simple choice. And I think there are many ways we can design this kind of simple choice for the consumers.
Yes. Also, we should start to summarize because we are already at the end of our time, and I try to put some very simple points on to share with you. Even if, as always happen, the simplification, the summary is always simplification of a very articulated discussion that we have here today. The first point is that we need to move from the top down to a bottom up approach in terms to complement what is already part of the international arena and negotiation. The bottom-up approach implies that we need to pay more attention in the consumption metrics, not only the production metrics. The consumption metrics should be based in the idea of carbon footprint in order to have the full consideration of the impact, not only the direct impact during specific phase. And on the base of this impact, we should shape the price. And one first point is that product with higher impact should have a higher price, a lower impact, lower price, but we can also facilitate the introduction of the premium price, where the consumer or the company who want to pay these specific high value products is available to spend a bigger amount of money. And so we can collect this premium price is a kind of fund, is a kind of place and collection. And then another point it will be how we will spend this money. And this is another very interesting story. But, I believe that for our purpose, this discussion was very interesting in order to facilitate the promotion of this new way of thinking. And then, Raekwon, I hope that you will go to the COP30 and maybe that we can find a situation where we can continue this conversation in order to see if there is possibility to make more, practical in terms of implementation. This tool, they should be simple and effective.
Okay. Yep. Thank you very much for the excellent summary. And but for your information, do I have 1 minute? And the data shows that the traded volume, traded goods are almost 20 to 25% of global GDP. Out of 100% global GDP, almost 20 to 25% is traded. So when we are only looking at the production side is actually very fuzzy and not correct. And because like UK is also publishing. I know the UK know this problem and recognize this problem, and the UK is publishing consumption emission data. This is a very good example. UK and Australia, these are the two governments around the world, only two governments publishing the embedded carbon in the imported goods. But none other government doing this. So we need to raise this issue, and people have to be aware about it, and then we can find a better solution.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, and I hope we have the opportunity to continue this conversation in other context.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
We are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.